What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the From Mourning to Action Powerfully Working Through Loss podcast. I am your host, Dr. Damon Silas, and I welcome you back. This is the next installment, and actually the final installment of the entire action plan. So if you've listened to the other ones, you know the A, the C, the T, the I, the O of this action plan, right? But what you don't know just yet is the N of the action plan. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the N, and the N is all about being present in the now. And so I'll talk about this, and this is all read from my book, What's Your Action Plan? 6 Powerful Ways to Get Unstuck in Your Life Now. So if you haven't had a chance to look at that book, do yourself a favor and check it out, and you can get it on any platform online, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc., etc. And I think I also say that in the ending, so check that out. Yeah, so today we're going to talk, like I said, about the now. So live in the now. Nowness, or being fully present in each moment, is one of my favorite these days. This has become a somewhat newer practice for me, and I'm so thankful I found this. This is just a side note. I wrote this, 2 years ago? So I've now been practicing this for about 2 years or so. So granted, I've been unknowingly practicing this for years, just taking in things in the moment, trying not to focus on the past or the present, but I now do so in a mindful manner. By mindful, I mean paying attention to my thought process without judgment nor being swept away with each thought, simply looking at each thought from an observer's point of view and not as though it's my own thought, feeling, or emotion. So you may be asking, how do I do that? I wish I could say the answer is easy. Well, in many ways it is. However, for many people, when introduced to this concept, they state that they either A, don't have time to do this, or B, don't have the patience to do this, or C, their mind races all over the place and there's no way they can sit quietly to calm those thoughts for any period of time. Well, to that I say, those are all the reasons you need to engage in this practice. So before I go on and talk to you about nowness or presentness, let me back up a little and talk about the resurgence of mindfulness and meditation in our culture nowadays. It hasn't always been a focal point or something that people were really into. As a matter of fact, meditation and mindfulness was once looked at as a quote-unquote hippie or counterculture practice that was laughed at and judged. This was until people really began to realize the benefits of such a practice. Compound that with the culture of there being a medication for everything you can think of, and you have a reemergence of more natural means to heal. I believe that with the rise of psychopharmacology has also resulted in the rise of natural holistic healing, or at least the awareness and piqued interest of it. People don't want to be on meds, especially long term. I would venture to say that 95% of the people I have worked with, if not more, have stated that either A, they don't want to be on meds if they can help it, or B, if they are already on meds, they would eventually like to wean themselves off of those. They don't want to deal with the side effects, the lethargy, the grogginess, the loss of personality, and thus the loss of being able to live a life to the fullest. The long and short is that they don't want to be a zombie walking dead. They want to heal and they know there's a mind-body connection, but they just don't know how to access it. Well, this indeed is the right place to begin to access it. Meditation and mindfulness have really started to make a comeback, and don't call it a comeback, it's been here for many, many years. But this is a practice that's been used within many cultures and religions for centuries, especially in the East. Yet we have fallen farther away from this as we try to take on all things on our own, rely on technology or a quick fix to do the work for us. Not realizing that the answer has always been within us. We simply need the key to get in. So being present in the moment is that very key. The benefits of such a practice are numerous, from lowering blood pressure, decreasing anxiety and depressive symptoms, and improving overall mood and health. There have been entire books written on all of these benefits. The point is, it works. Now, while there are many levels to this practice, I will emphasize the foundational one, which is to focus on your breath. No matter what, you can always return to your breath. As long as you are breathing, there is life. As long as there is life, there is light. As long as there is light, there is hope. And as long as there is hope, there is breath. It comes full circle, 360 degrees. It makes me think of a 60-minute piece where they interviewed a man who had been detained at Guantanamo for 15 years during the War on Terror just after September 11th. While there, he wrote one book that was released and reviewed as a New York Times bestseller, chronicling his experiences while locked up there. The interviewer proceeds to ask him, at what point while you were being shipped from one country to another and eventually to Gitmo did you feel that feeling in your stomach that this was it? In other words, she was wondering if he had emotionally given up. He responded, that never happened, surprisingly. There was always hope. And when there's always hope, there is still life. What a powerful testament to being in the moment. Whenever a thought comes up, because they will, it's impossible to stop or completely quiet your thoughts, contrary to what people think meditation is about. Simply acknowledge, notice, and let them go. We have millions of thoughts each day. Really hundreds of thousands, but you get the point. But do not cling to them as though they are you. Do not cling to them as they define who you are. Do not respond to them as though there is something you need to do or respond to now in this very moment. The only thing you have to do in this very moment is breathe. Be aware and be. While you may have had a tendency before to be controlled by that thought as soon as it comes up, you are regaining your internal sense of control. It reminds me of a patient I once worked with who would consistently respond to his phone when it rang or buzzed during our sessions with a call or a text message. So this person had also self-described symptoms of ADHD, which a lot of people do. And as we worked through a lot of his old stuff, I began to talk to him about the power of choice. Whereas at one point he felt as though he didn't have a choice as to answer those calls or texts, we discussed this in the context of life, and thus his internal thought process. He didn't have to answer those things immediately. The person who was calling or texting could always either leave a message or wait for his response when he had a chance. He had more power over his phone than he ever thought. Oh, I just don't have to respond to each call I get, he exclaimed. It was liberating for him because he could remain present in our conversations in that room without being pulled off task by a device that somehow began to control his life. You don't have to answer your phone. You don't have to respond to that thought. It will be there. There is nothing you have to do in this moment but be. So there's a link that I include in the book to an expert in mindfulness who is John Kabat-Zinn, who I had the pleasure of seeing speak at the Psychotherapy Networker in Washington, D.C. several years ago. So if you have a chance to look at the book, go ahead and do yourself a favor and check out that link. And I'll put the link in the show notes as well. The app Insight Timer is an amazing one that offers thousands of free meditations, and I found it to be extremely beneficial not only for myself, but to all those who have checked it out. It includes guided meditations, extended talks about meditation, as well as meditative music tracks. There's truly something there for everyone, so get to exploring. Download that now. And I offer the above as resources that you can begin to look into if you are curious about this whole mindfulness thing. The wonderful thing is that it doesn't have to be taken too seriously, nor does it have to take up your entire day. It can be done in an hour, a half an hour, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, or even 1 minute. There is an app for that, as I stated, for real. It really is up to you and what you can handle, but also what can rejuvenate you while bringing you back to the here and now. The reality is that there is so much going on in our lives nowadays that it can be hard to think about adding something else in there to our plates to overwhelm us that much more. And while I get that way of thinking, it's really about incorporating this into your life so you can become more fully present and focused on whatever is going on in your life. Those deadlines you have to reach, the games you have to take the kids to, the meals you have to prepare days ahead of schedule. Imagine if there was a supercharge or superpower button you could access that could help you remember, energize you, and allow you to truly connect to each of these activities without just simply going through them in a blind zombie-like fashion. Well, meditation is it. And if the thought of meditation still remains uncomfortable or daunting, there's yoga. There's dancing mindfulness, a la Jamie Marich. There are ways to access this state that is different than simply sitting somewhere for a short or extended period of time. You can move around and become aware of your body's way of moving that can contribute to this state of mindfulness. Honestly, the Buddhist monks and those within the mindful movement often focus on the importance of mindful walking, being consciously aware of each step you take, taking them slowly while noticing what it feels like to intentionally experience each step as a distinct step from the one before. Or if you don't like that, there's mindful teeth brushing, mindful eating, anything else mindful you can think of. It's not just stopping and doing nothing, but rather being aware of what you're doing while employing human and conscious thought rather than robotic thinking and doing that we are otherwise doing to ourselves on a daily basis. The other powerful thing about mindfulness is that it helps you to resolve what is in your past so you can be fully present, at least for that moment. What happened to you just before you started this practice, or even years ago when you were younger, what your parents said and did to you to make you the way you are today, those things don't matter. As one of the trainers of a training I went to stated, those things don't exist right now. They only exist in your head as a representation, as a blueprint, as an imprint of something that doesn't presently exist. That voice of your mom, the image of the person who cut you off in traffic, the voice of that second grade teacher that said you would be a failure doesn't actually exist in this moment. It simply is a thought. Thoughts can have power and control over us if we let them. But what if we regain that power to say to ourselves, this thought, the only thing that exists right now is this thought and this sensation that comes along with it. And then there is another thought. We have millions of thoughts each day, and we tend to pay attention to the ones that seem to be true or matter to us more. But who says those thoughts are true? Do we determine that they are? Why do we decide to listen to some thoughts and pay attention to those over any other thought? The squeaky wheel gets the oil, and the same is true for our thoughts. It's not that the other ones are any less valid or true. It's just that we've become accustomed to listening to those that seem to protect us in a way that the other ones may not do. So we take heed. But what if I told you those thoughts are not only not true, but they are now, presently, doing you a disservice because they are keeping you from achieving all of the wonderful and amazing things you are supposed to or meant to accomplish. They have kept you from sharing, from being vulnerable, from opening up because they have protected you in the past. But that level of protection isn't needed in this moment, and there is nothing more to do in this moment but to be present in this moment. It is a beautiful cycle and one that doesn't have to be too difficult. See, we tend to overcomplicate things and overanalyze and over-rationalize things. Left brain living, if you will. Meditation and mindfulness just recenter us without the need to engage our left brain as much. So that's all about meditation and mindfulness. I'm going to end it right there. There's actually a second part of this chapter that I'm going to come back to, and this next part of the chapter is all about forgiveness and acceptance, which is a huge part of my book From Mourning to Night, Overcoming Loss. If you haven't read that, do yourself a favor, check that one out too. And please, I'm always open to reviews and any feedback. So leave a review on Amazon if you get a chance to, if you've read it. But it's all about forgiveness and learning how to accept what has happened so that we can be, again, fully present in the moment. So thank you all for tuning in. As always, be sure to like, subscribe, share with other people who you think could benefit from this message and what I'm saying. I love you guys and I appreciate it. And I will check you guys out on the next one. Peace, love, and light, y'all. This is Dr. Damon Silas signing off. Bye. From Mourning to Action, Powerfully Working Through Loss is a podcast based on Dr. Damon Silas's 2 books. The first is From Mourning to Night, Overcoming Loss, and the second one is What's Your Action Plan? 6 powerful ways to get unstuck in your life now. Be sure to check those 2 books out on the website www.damonsilaspsychology.com/store. You can also go on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or wherever you can find any books and check that book out there. Furthermore, if you like what you hear, feel free to leave a review, and I'm always looking for guests. So please feel free to send an email to damon@tippingpointwellnessllc.com. And as always, thanks for tuning in. Peace, love, and light, y'all.